Thanks so much, Lynn. Good to be with you all. It's a joy, and thank you for accommodating my neck challenges today. And again, I'm really grateful to be with you. The opening words for the sermon come from Dorothy Day, and not Doris Day, Dorothy Day. And Dorothy Day is a founder of the Catholic Worker Movement, which was a movement to um, connect, work with, serve, be in relationship with people in poverty, and known especially for living with people in poverty very specifically, and living in connection with and in a deep level of hospitality with people in poverty. And she says words that I just find super powerful. The gospel takes away our right forever to discriminate between the deserving and the undeserving poor. The gospel takes away our right forever to discriminate between the deserving and the undeserving poor. And I think honestly, perhaps more than any other quote over the last decade, I've returned to these words of Dorothy Day again and again for guidance and inspiration and challenge. They keep me constantly on my toes and thinking so much, given my work with people in poverty. And I really do value these words so much that I have an artist's print framed in my office with the face of Dorothy Day and these words on there. The gospel takes away our right forever to discriminate between the deserving and the undeserving poor. The quote, I think, inspires so many questions. What makes someone deserving? How do we deem someone undeserving? How do we treat someone we consider deserving or undeserving? Why do we separate people into the deserving and the undeserving? How can we live without such a separation? What is a person worth? And how can we truly respond, when we are confronted with someone we are tempted to view as having no worth, being undeserving? Our first principle, of course, challenges us to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Our Unitarian ancestors believed that divinity was not confined to one person, but is present in all of us. William Ellery Channing, the founder of American Unitarianism, called it the divine seed. And our Universalist forebears affirmed a God of love who could never condemn any of his people to an eternal damnation and eternal separation. So this quote, this Dorothy Day quote, rings deeply with the notes of our heritage, calling us, reminding us, because we need reminding. The first principle is not our principle because it's easy, but because it's hard. We fail again and again in living up to its standards, and truthfully, I'm not sure it's even possible for us to fully embody such a principle in the actions of any of our particular lives. Maybe together we can, but alone, so very difficult, if not impossible. But we challenge ourselves to grow, to expand, to take notice, to give, to love, to sacrifice, and to celebrate. Some years ago, I traveled to Washington, D.C., and visited the National Holocaust Museum there. And as I walked around the museum, I came across a very large gate with words inscribed into the metal. Arbeit macht frei, translating from the German, work sets you free. I learned this gate was cast from the very gate of Auschwitz, and it was what people saw as they entered into Auschwitz. It made enough of an impression that I took a photo of the gate and posted it on Facebook with a bunch of other photos from the museum. But I didn't think about it much more than that until I came across a book by a man named Jacob Stanley. And his book was called How Fascism Works. And he very much talks about this gate in the book. And he wrote in this book, in fascist ideology, in times of crisis and need, the state reserves support for the members of the chosen nation, for us and not them. The justification is invariably because they are lazy, lack a work ethic, and because they are criminal and seek only to live off the state largesse. In fascist politics, they can be cured of laziness and thievery by hard labor. That is why the gates of Auschwitz and Buchenwald had emblazoned on them the slogan, Arbeit macht frei, work shall make you free. Stanley continues, in Nazi ideology, Jews, and forgive me this terms because this is a little rough, but Jews were lazy, corrupt criminals who spent their time scheming to take the money of hardworking Aryans. In 1919, the guidelines of the German Workers' Party, which would eventually become the Nazi Party, they wrote, who is the German Workers' Party fighting against? Against all those who create no value, who make high profits without any mental or physical work. We fight against the drones in the state. These are mostly Jews. They live a good life. They reap where they have not sown. Stanley continues, fascist movements share with social Darwinism the idea that life is a competition for power. To have a life worthy of value is to have risen above others by struggle and merit, to have survived a fierce competition for resources. Those who do not compete successfully do not deserve the goods and resources of society. In an ideology that measures worth by productivity, propaganda that represents the members of an outgroup as lazy is a way to justify placing them lower on a hierarchy of worth. Some years ago, I was watching a show called The Man in the High Castle, which was based on the book by Philip K. Dick. And it explores an alternate reality. What if the Nazis actually won World War II? What if the United States became a Nazi colony? In the series, Jewish people were horribly, virtually eliminated from the world, but the regime continued to kill people, in particular those who were born with or developed disabilities, that they would eliminate and exterminate everyone who was born with or who developed a disability. And the show reminded me about how the Nazis' drive for genetic supremacy led them not just to attack people who were Jewish, but also people with disabilities, that the Holocaust, in fact, began with the euthanizing of those with disabilities. And they called them the life unworthy of life and useless eaters. These were terms that they used to describe people with disability, useless eaters and the life unworthy of life. So you see, in the notion of the undeserving poor lies the seeds of extraordinary brutality. In the United States today, there's a common phrase often shouted at homeless people: get a job. As innocuous as it might seem, the taunt echoes this Nazi ethos. Who is the German Workers' Party fighting against? Against all those who create no value. Those who do not compete successfully do not deserve the goods and resources of society. To shout, get a job at a stranger when confronted with their poverty and distress is to say to someone, you have no value except in your work, in your productivity. And because you are not working as I think you should, I can hate you. There are many reasons we use to determine if people, if someone is deserving or not. I see it all the time in my work with people without homes, that we find reasons to categorize people into deserving and undeserving. And We can even fall susceptible to it as social service agencies, that nonprofits fall into this very same pattern of dividing people into those who are deserving and those who are not, trying to, if you will, sell for donations. Our more glamorous clients, our more acceptable ones, children, homeless, veterans, those seeking employment, those who do not use drugs, those who are from our town rather than from someone else's. And the phrase "get a job" are the seeds of hatred and control. Not because work doesn't have value, but because of our need to define people's value based on work. The Nazis certainly used their emphasis on work to create, such horrific ends, and unknowingly so do the hateful shouters of today. Defining people by their work is the core of supremacy. I'm better because I'm wealthier. I'm deserving because I produce more. Work has value, and we must hold tight unto that which comes before the call to work, the inherent value of the human person. Which is why Dorothy Day's quote is so potent. We all are susceptible to a discrimination between those we consider deserving and undeserving. But it also doesn't have to be that way. In fact, it was within homeless work that I found another way. As many of you know, for more than a decade, I've been running Beacon, a homeless services and housing provider for people struggling with extreme poverty, especially hunger and homelessness. And while it has been a long active service, it has also been an opportunity to be served, a recognition of solidarity. Aboriginal activist Lilla Watson says, "If you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together." In my work at Beacon, I've been confronted by people with just about every form of challenge, struggle, failure, loss, cruelty that a human can experience, or in some cases commit. In the cadre of society's outcasts, I encountered hunger, homelessness, unemployment, mental illness, addiction, chronic illness, disabilities, crime, child abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, cutting, suicide, smelliness, unusual vocalizations, bad teeth, horrible wounds, detox, cruelties and kindnesses and indifference. All of it is there. All that we run away from, all that we societally shun is there. And while vastly painful at times, there also is a simple honesty about it all, a truth telling. There is no hiding one's faults because they are all right there, right in front of us. That which middle-class society often hides from and flees in our attempts to appear better off than we are, here it is everywhere, exposed, open, and honest. And in this environment, in this kind of work, right from the very beginning, when I began, I was told to love, that my job was to love, was to welcome each and every one, to offer simple dignity. And in learning to love all those rejected things in those guests of Beacon, I learned to love all of those rejected things in me. And in that love for other people and their flaws and struggles, I was able to be honest with my own flaws and struggles. I was able to find common ground with my own incompleteness, a foundation of self built not on pretending to be a success, but an honesty in my humanness, from humus of the earth. And somewhere in that maelstrom of marginalized people, I found solidarity. You and I both need to eat. You and I both need to sleep. You and I both have things we're not proud of. You and I both have a body that will die. You and I both are here together. There's something bigger that emerges when we extend beyond the divisions of separateness, of flaws of deservedness. There's a foundation that's built. And any society not built on a foundation of fundamental dignity is a society that will openly be cruel, that will create economic policies that favor the wealthy and the white, that will create criminal justice policies that throw people away and never cultivate the possibility of redemption, that will create a foreign policy that lifts one's self-interest up over the values you supposedly uphold, condoning torture, invasion, and genocide, immigration policies that demonize the other, environmental policies that decimate and destroy our planet. The inherent worth and dignity of every person is shockingly radical if taken seriously and acted upon. Within that dignity, within Dorothy Day's little quote, lie the seeds of hope, of possibility, of a community and a society that recognizes that we're all in this together. We need each other. The gospel of love would have it no other way. Shalom, amen, and blessed be.